My name is Alexander, and I'm a restaurant owner who didn't know how to be human until I met a woman who was being treated like she wasn't. I'm 52 years old, and I own a high-end steakhouse in the downtown district. I built this restaurant from nothing, started as a line cook, worked my way up, eventually saved enough to open my own place. The restaurant is successful, award-winning, and by most standards, a reflection of my ability to build something meaningful. But I've also built a culture of perfectionism that borders on toxic. My staff works under intense pressure. My expectations are impossibly high. And my manager, Vincent, a man I hired 10 years ago because he was ruthless and efficient, has been running the front of house like a military operation. On Christmas Eve, everything changed. It was one of our busiest nights of the year. The restaurant was fully booked. Families were celebrating. There was a warmth to the evening that I usually miss because I'm too busy watching the operations, checking temperatures, ensuring perfection. That's when I noticed her. Her name is Emma, and she was a waitress who'd been with us for about 6 months. She was competent, not exceptional, but solid. She showed up on time, she was friendly with the customers, she did her job. I probably wouldn't have noticed her at all except that I was standing near the kitchen and I saw her drop a plate. It wasn't a disaster. A salad hit the floor. She apologized to the customer, immediately brought a replacement, and cleaned up the mess. It took maybe 5 minutes total. That's when Vincent appeared. He pulled her aside, roughly, I noticed, and started berating her. His voice was low but sharp, cutting. He was telling her she was careless, irresponsible, that she wasn't good enough for this restaurant, that she was dragging down the whole team. I watched her face crumble. She was trying not to cry. She was apologizing profusely. She was essentially accepting his judgment as if it were truth. And something in me broke. I walked over and pulled Vincent aside. "That's enough," I said quietly. "Go manage the kitchen." He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Sir, standards." "I know about standards," I said. "But berating someone publicly on Christmas Eve isn't standard. It's cruelty." He left, and I turned to find Emma already walking toward the back, probably to compose herself. I followed her. She was in the employee break room, sitting on a chair, her head in her hands. She looked up when I came in, and I could see the shame in her expression, the shame of being publicly humiliated. "I'm so sorry," she said immediately. "It won't happen again. I promise." "You don't need to apologize," I said, sitting down across from her. "That wasn't your fault." Vincent was out of line. "But I dropped the plate," she said. "That was my mistake." "Yes," I said. "And you fixed it." And then Vincent decided to use it as an opportunity to make you feel small. That was his choice. Not an inevitable consequence of your mistake. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Gratitude mixed with something else, maybe disbelief that anyone would stand up for her. "Thank you," she said quietly. I left her there to finish her shift, and I spent the rest of the evening thinking about how much damage I'd allowed in my restaurant without even realizing it. The next morning, I called Vincent into my office. "I need to be honest with you," I said. "The way you treat staff is unacceptable. And I've allowed it because I was focused on perfection and efficiency. But treating people like they're disposable isn't acceptable, and if you can't change that, I'm going to need to let you go." Vincent was defensive. He said the standards were what made us successful. He said staff needed discipline. He said I was being soft. "Maybe," I said. "But I'm the owner, and I'm making a different choice. You have 2 weeks to find a new job. Or you can leave today." He left that day. Then I did something that probably should have come much earlier. I walked around my restaurant and I actually talked to my staff. Not about operations, but about their experiences. I asked them about working conditions. I asked them what they needed. I asked them how they felt. What I heard was heartbreaking. People were exhausted. They felt undervalued. They were scared of making mistakes because the punishment was public shame. Some of them were so anxious about work that they developed stress-related illnesses. I'd built a successful restaurant by crushing the humanity out of the people who made it possible. I started making changes. I gave raises across the board. I brought in new management, People who understood that you could maintain standards without destroying people's sense of self-worth. I changed the culture from perfectionism to excellence. There's a difference. Excellence is about doing good work. Perfectionism is about never being good enough. I also made a point of noticing Emma. Not in a creepy way, but in a deliberate way. I'd come out of the kitchen and see how she was doing. I'd ask her about her life. I'd listen to her answers. What I learned was that she was working this job because she was putting herself through nursing school. She had ambitions of becoming a pediatric nurse. She was building a life despite working in an industry that often treats service workers as invisible. After about 2 months, I asked her if she wanted to get coffee, as a friend, not as her boss. She agreed, somewhat cautiously. Coffee became regular. Every week, we'd meet at a cafe not associated with the restaurant, and we'd just talk. About her nursing classes, about her dreams, about why she'd ended up in this city and this job. About a month into these regular coffee dates, I realized I was falling in love with her. It was complicated. She worked for me, there was an age difference, there was a power imbalance. I was very aware of all of those things. But I was also aware that she was starting to look forward to our coffee dates the way I was. That she was opening up about her life. That something genuine was building between us. One day, I said to her, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Does the fact that I'm your boss make you uncomfortable? Would you feel more comfortable if I stepped back from these coffee dates? She thought about it seriously. Honestly, she said. A little bit. But not because I don't want to spend time with you. I'm just aware that you could fire me. I'm aware that the power dynamic isn't equal. I'm aware that if this went wrong, you could make my job a nightmare. I wouldn't, I said. But I understand why you'd worry about that. It's a valid concern. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to remove myself from your direct management. I'm going to transition you to working directly under the new manager I hired. That way, there's no power imbalance, and you don't have to worry about any of this. You'd do that? She asked. I would, I said. Because what I care about more than anything is that you feel safe. If that requires removing myself from a position of power over you, then that's what I want to do. I made the transition official the next week. Once Emma was working under different management, the complicated feelings became simpler. We started dating officially. It wasn't perfect. There was still the age difference, still people judging us for how we met, still the complicated history of how I'd treated my employees before. But it was honest. Emma was finishing her nursing degree. She'd be done in about a year. When she graduated, I wanted her to leave the restaurant and pursue her real passion, helping kids. I was already planning to help her with tuition for graduate school, though I hadn't told her yet. 6 months into dating her, I realized something important. Meeting Emma, firing Vincent, changing the culture of my restaurant, none of that was about romance. It was about becoming a person I could respect. It was about learning that efficiency without humanity is just cruelty with good margins. One night, we were sitting on my apartment balcony overlooking the city, and I said to her, I want to tell you something. When I first met you, really met you, you were being treated like you didn't matter. And I want to apologize for the years I was someone who made people feel that way. You've changed, Emma said. That's what matters. I changed because of you, I said. Because seeing you get hurt made me realize the kind of man I'd become. Emma took my hand. You became the kind of man who fires toxic managers on principle, she said. You became the kind of man who asks his employees how they're feeling. You became the kind of man who steps back from a position of power to give me a choice. That's not just change. That's growth. 1 year after we first met, Emma graduated from her nursing program. I took her out to celebrate. And at the end of the dinner, I gave her something. It was a key. What's this? She asked. It's a key to my apartment, I said. Not because you need to move in, but because I want you to know that you have a safe place. A place where you're chosen, not used. A place where you're valued, not tolerated. She understood immediately. The key wasn't just to my apartment. It was acknowledgement of what she'd given me, a second chance at being a better person. 2 years after we met, I proposed. I did it at the restaurant, in front of the staff, The new staff, the ones who were treated with respect and dignity. I did it publicly because I wanted everyone to know that I'd learned something important. The woman who'd been treated badly one Christmas Eve was actually the most important person in the space. Emma said yes with tears running down her face. 3 years after the night I saw her get fired, I stood with Emma in our restaurant now, because she'd convinced me to expand it into a training ground for hospitality workers and school for young people learning the industry. We'd hired 50 young people in the past year, all of them learning alongside experienced mentors. The culture we'd built was one where excellence was expected, but humanity was never sacrificed. Do you regret it? Emma asked me one night. Leaving that other version of yourself behind? I thought about Vincent. I thought about the staff who'd quit because they couldn't handle the pressure. I thought about years spent building something successful at the cost of people's well-being. No, I said. I regret the years I spent being that person. But I don't regret the moment I decided to change. Emma smiled. The waitress who got fired, she said, became the woman who transformed a restaurant. And the owner who allowed cruelty became someone capable of real love. That's a generous way to frame it, I said. It's honest, she said. And you taught me that honesty matters more than perfection. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more heartfelt tales, and drop a comment letting us know where you're listening from. We'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you. Thanks for being part of the Unscripted Stories community.